Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, the weekly segment in which I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Summerslam's in the rearview mirror as we build toward Clash of the Champions and Backlash. Let's see which show fared better for the week. Raw opened up this week as Finn Balor relinquished the Universal Championship after suffering a torn labrum in his match against Seth Rollins at Summerslam. I went into a lot of detail about this whole affair in my video that came out yesterday about the whole thing. I'm not going to go into it again here. All I will say is, once again, get well soon, Finn Balor. Of course, the aftermath of Balor relinquishing the title was everyone coming out of the woodwork to claim that they were the rightful #1 contenders to the Universal Championship. People like Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho and Big Cass and Sami Zayn. And every single person who came out, he kept cutting back to a shot of Seth Rollins just looking beside himself, just looking like he didn't want anything to do with this pack of animals coming out of the woodwork. I thought that was pretty hilarious. They kept coming back to him. Rollins, say what you will about whether or not he's reckless, at least he is a good actor. I like his mannerisms as a heel. I think that stuff is great. So, of course, that led to a series of matches throughout the night to determine who would fight next week on Raw to become the new Universal Championship. The first match out the gate was Rollins versus Sami Zayn. The one thing I will say that I didn't like about that match was the Sami Zayn, tweaking his ankle and selling it for the rest of the match. I think the way he sold it to me, it seemed like it was a work, it wasn't a shoot, and I question that. I think the fact that they just had somebody relinquish a championship and be out for several months due to a legitimate injury, so it's still fresh in everyone's minds. The fact that they teased or they worked a potential injury like Sami Zayn's ankle, to me it blurred the lines a little bit too much. I didn't appreciate that. I didn't really care for that sort of thing. Of course, Rollins advancing in that match, beating Sami Zayn. Let me know what you think about the worked injury. I'm 90% sure it was a work because I haven't heard anything about it since then. So let me know what you think about them. Do you think it was in poor taste for Sami Zayn to be having the fake injury so soon after Balor had the real one? Let me know what you think. Kevin Owens taking on Neville to see who would join Seth Rollins in that fatal four-way next week for the title. I found it interesting that Neville was not in the opening segment, the people who were coming out to claim their rightful place, yet he was in this match. To me, it was kind of a dead giveaway. It's the equivalent of the jobber who's already out in the ring while the other wrestler is making his big grand entrance. But be that as it may, it was still a fun little match. I loved Neville's deadlift German suplex to Kevin Owens. To me, that was just as impressive, if not more so, than all the flips and the flying stuff he does. Either way, Kevin Owens wins with help from Jericho. The New Day celebrating 1 full year as tag team champions. I've said before that I think their act is kind of stale and they don't really need the tag team championships anymore. A lot of people seem to be of that mindset. But be that as it may, it's still very impressive that they've held the belts for that long. Not everyone can say they've held the tag titles or any title for a year plus. It's very impressive. It's a great accomplishment. So kudos to the New Day for that. I want to see Big E. I just want to see him serving bootios to people in the crowd out of a big copper bowl with a giant ladle. I want him to do that forever now. I want that to be his permanent gimmick from now on. The cereal vendor, the cereal man. That'd be great. But either way, they were interrupted by Anderson and Gallows. Sounds like it's going to be a continuation of their feud going into Clash of Champions. And of course, that led to a singles match between Big E and Carl Anderson, with Big E picking up the win. Hopefully, he'll serve out some more cereal to celebrate. Titus O'Neil came out and cut a promo on Monday night before beating up Bob Backlund and Darren Young, and made me further question just what the company ever saw in that guy. Rusev taking on Big Cass in a Universal Championship qualifier. Michael Cole on commentary said it was a very important match. It wasn't. Big Cass won via countout, which surprised the hell out of me. I thought Rusev was going to win and go on to the fatal four-way at the end. But I think putting Big Cass in there is kind of a welcome change of pace. I doubt he's going to win next week, but him being in there kind of gives the impression that anything could happen. So, good for Big Cass. The third hour kicked off with Charlotte delivering a self-congratulatory promo after she beat Sasha Banks for the title the night before at SummerSlam. Mick Foley interrupts her and introduces Bayley to the main roster. Easily one of the highlights of the night. One of the biggest pops of the night by far, if not the biggest pop of the night. Everyone was very happy to see Bayley on the main roster. 4 reels this time, not a one-night deal like at Battleground. It's been a long time coming for a lot of people. Bayley deserves this. Let's just get that out of the way. She's an amazing talent. I think she's going to do very well. Bayley then took on Dana Brooke in singles competition after the promo, did a weird little rodeo thing early in the match. That was kind of strange, but be that as it may, she defeated Dana Brooke and now has a lot of momentum going into what I believe will be Clash of the Champions going against Charlotte for the women's title. Braun Strowman taking on Jobby Knockout, where he said he likes big, sweaty men. All right, I've heard stranger promos. Strowman goes over as is predicted, and this is interesting because this week there was a Braun Strowman squash and no mention of Nia Jax, not a match or a promo, which means next week it's going to be a Nia Jax match and no Braun Strowman promo. Calling it right now. The Dudley Boys say goodbye. You know, I was reading today, it's not a work, it is for real. The Dudley Boys are not going to be with the company anymore after Monday night, which to me is kind of a shame. It's bittersweet because in the year they've been back since last year, they've been mostly jobbers, but they were very entertaining jobbers. Their personalities still outshone a lot of the current crop of stars happening that are wrestling today, in fact. But they were very good at what they did. They did a very good job putting people over. They had a great farewell promo in which they name dropped not only Edge and Christian, but also the Hardy Boys. You know, those guys who are pretty prominently featured in TNA right now. It got a delete chant from the crowd. I thought that was amazing. But yeah, it was a really cool promo. They got interrupted by the Shining Stars, and then you thought, oh, it's going to end on a high note where the Dudleys put them through a table. But no, Anderson and Gallows come out and beat them up. And you know, I was expecting the New Day were going to come out and continue their thing from hour 1 or hour 2 and come out and save the day, and then, you know, New Day would raise the Dudleys' hands and that'd be their farewell. But no, the Dudley Boys got laid out and that was it. That's their goodbye. You know, and when I first watched it, I'm like, that's kind of lame that they would go out as a low note. But then, you know, and then Corey Graves said the most brilliant thing on commentary. There was a time where the Dudley Boys would have done the same thing. I'm like, yes, that's brilliant, actually, because Anderson and Gallows beating up the Dudleys on their way out. Even though the Dudleys, you know, their stock has fallen, they've been jobbers for the last year, but everyone still respects the Dudleys. Everyone still reveres the Dudleys. So Anderson and Gallows taking them out as their last act on TV, the Dudleys that is, builds even more heat for them as it goes into, again, what I speculate to be a continuation of their fight with the New Day going into the pay-per-view. So again, brilliant booking. At first I was kind of pissed off, but then I realized that's exactly what they wanted me to do. Main event time, Roman Reigns versus Chris Jericho for the final spot in the Fatal 4-Way for next week for the Universal title. Roman Reigns going over. You know, he's getting better. I think he's being booked the way that he really always should have been booked. Now that he's been demoted, he's basically not talking a whole lot, and he's kicking people's ass, you know? And that's really the way they should have been booking him all along. What they did with him when he was the WWE Champion, I thought it was the wrong direction. Now that he's been kind of put back in this mid-card position, I think he's finally finding his footing. I think, unfortunately now, the crowd, they're not booing him that much anymore. It's mostly met with apathy, which I think is a real shame because he's really starting to, you know, come out more. His really personality is starting to shine more by doing less. Less is more for Roman Reigns. And one thing that it's kind of a knock on, not him necessarily, it's the way he's booked, the fact that his two biggest moves, the spear and the Superman punch, are both set up with him standing in the corner. And they at least went to him in the corner 6 times on Monday night, setting up for those moves, and there was a lot of falsies there. So the fact he kept going back to the corner over and over again, to me got kind of repetitive. But be that as it may, I think he's still being booked much stronger now in a way than he was when he was a main eventer. It's building to his strengths more. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the main event. Smackdown time. The opening segment unveiled the new women's and tag team titles exclusive to Smackdown. And let me just say, if you didn't like the way the Universal title panned out, you're not going to like the designs for the Smackdown exclusive belts, because our worst fears have been realized, folks. Red belts and blue belts. But you know what? The more I think about it, the less I get mad about it. I'm not mad about the belts anymore. It's just, you know, I will say, individually and by themselves in a bubble, the belts look fine. I like the designs. I like the color schemes. I just think the biggest knock on them right now is that there's a lack of creativity. The designs are exactly the same. There is no creativity. There is no uniqueness to them other than the color schemes, which to me is not befitting a multi-million-dollar company, which really you'd think they'd be able to do better. That's my one knock on them. Again, I think the belts look great. I just think they look too much like the ones on Raw, and that's the biggest knock. Opening match was Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss in a rematch from their bout a couple of weeks ago, in which Alexa Bliss got the win in her debut. Of course, Becky Lynch getting her win back this time because that is the way of 50-50 booking in the WWE. Interesting note, Natalya and Naomi were on commentary for this match, and boy, their input sure made a big difference. The Blue Tag Team Championships will be decided in a tournament culminating at Backlash. So you have the first round action, first match with the Usos versus the Ascension. In a match I feel like we've seen a million times before, and considering how thin the tag roster is on SmackDown, we'll be seeing a million times more with the same results, because I can't think of the last time the Ascension ever won a match. Please someone look up when the last time the Ascension won a match on TV and let me know. I'm dying to know. Be that as it may, one thing I noticed was Mauro Ranallo occasionally going into video game commentary mode as he would pause when he was calling Uso moves, like a great dropkick by Jey Uso. Great move by Jimmy Uso. It's one of the things. See, I'm not the only one who has a hard time telling them apart. Even he's got to look and double check and see which one's which based on the makeup side before he can call a move. See, I'm not the only one. AJ Styles comes out, cuts a promo wearing the John Cena armband that Cena put down in the middle of the ring after the match at SummerSlam. Very heelish thing to do there, AJ. Then Dolph Ziggler comes out, continues the fight the two had in the opening segment. Daniel Bryan comes out, makes a match between the two of them, and this is what he says. He says, if AJ Styles wins, he's going to fight Dean Ambrose for the title at Backlash. But if Dolph Ziggler wins, Ziggler will join AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose. So either way, AJ Styles is going to be in the match. I think they meant to communicate something a little different there. Nikki Bella versus Carmella standing under my umbrella, Ella. First of all, thanks to the bajillion of you who called me out in the comments section of the SummerSlam review, correcting me, saying that it was a TKO that Bella did on Sunday, not a rack attack. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I never realized you cared so much about Nikki Bella's finisher. Be that as it may, the match never really got underway because Nikki was cutting a pre-match promo. Carmella is a heel now, I guess, and beat up Nikki, who is a face now, I guess. Randy Orton cut a promo on Tuesday night showing off the 10 staples he got after that gnarly gash he got at the hands of Brock Lesnar from Sunday night. He didn't get very far before Bray Wyatt interrupted him, calling himself a god. I guess some gods lose all the time and don't really back up what they say. Either way, he teleported in, then out, setting up something in the future between him and Orton for some later time yet to be determined. It was then followed up immediately by a backstage segment in which Shane McMahon was interviewed, and he said that the thing between him and Brock Lesnar was not over yet. Does that mean now we're going to be getting a Shane McMahon-Brock Lesnar fight sometime in the future? No! American Alpha versus Breezango in the opening round of the Blue Tag Team title tournament. Not much to say about the match. It was a very good match, very competitive. It was a very fun, classic tag team match. I think Jason Jordan's hot tag is amazing. I love it. I want to see a never-ending Jason Jordan hot tag. That's how I feel about that. So again, the match was great. American Alpha going over and advancing, and they were pointing to the belts as they want to do. And honestly, the more I looked at the tag belts, I actually prefer that look for the tag titles a lot more than the ones on Raw. I like the blue and gray colors, the blue and silver color scheme, I should say. It really closely resembles, the colors from my old high school back in Portland. Although I guess the less I'm reminded of high school, the better. I'm just one man, but I'm the one man. Main event time, Dolph Ziggler taking on AJ Styles, where no matter what happens, AJ Styles is going to fight for the title at Backlash. So there goes any and all suspense leading into the match. Be that as it may, it was a very fun match. It was the first time these two have fought, to my knowledge. They haven't fought before except for the six-pack challenge last month, where Dolph Ziggler beat AJ Styles to go on to fight Ambrose at SummerSlam, but they were never in a one-on-one match before. And I think with proper build and with more storytelling, that could be an amazing series of fights. I can't wait to see those two go at it more, because this match in particular was really fun. Nothing like two guys who are great at selling going after each other and overselling and just selling wildly each other's stuff. I thought that was the great stuff. Of course, AJ Styles going over with some sneaky tactics at the end, kicking the rope, hitting Dolph Ziggler in the groin area. This next segment has nothing to do with the score for SmackDown. It's not going to factor into my grade for either show because this was Talking Smack. It's a network thing, not officially part of SmackDown, but it is worth talking about. All night people were tweeting me saying, Brian, you have to hear what The Miz said on Talking Smack. It's amazing. So I did watch it, and yeah, it was pretty captivating stuff. For those of you who missed it, it was The Miz and Daniel Bryan. The Miz was a guest and just yelling at Daniel Bryan, basically saying, the reason that I'm still here and you're not is because I wrestle a safer style. And it was really amazing for them to have that kind of admission on a WWE-sanctioned program, because it echoes basically what I've been saying for a long time in this show, is that the way the current style has evolved in the company, it's basically an indie style. It's high impact, high risk, semi-strong style, that whole indie mentality of wrestling. When you combine it with a WWE schedule, it's a recipe for disaster. And it's why so many guys get injured, because all the people who do get injured, they are those kinds of guys, the people who are former indie guys coming in to a full-time schedule, not an indie schedule, and their bodies don't have time to heal, and they get fatigued and they get exhausted. That's why there's injuries. And you look at The Miz, who was brought up in the OVW Deep South kind of style, and that was a much more old-school traditional thing. So yeah, The Miz, he's not a very flashy wrestler, but like he said, he's never really been injured. He's been a constant, steady, reliable hand for 10 plus years because of the way he wrestled. It's the whole reason guys like Ric Flair wrestled for so long. Guys of the territory era were able to wrestle 10, 20, 30-year careers is because it's a safer style. So the fact that The Miz brought this out and made it kind of a public thing and said and just laid it out there in front of Daniel Bryan, whose career was cut short for having that kind of style, it to me was kind of mind-blowing. I thought it was amazing. Now, I don't know how much of what he said was a work. It's probably one of those work shoots, or as I call them, a woot. I don't know what's going to happen as a result of this. I think the fact that The Miz is a company guy, I can't imagine he's going to be punished that much. But I wonder how much of what he said is going to bleed into the future Talking Smacks, or if it's I don't know, maybe it's a reaction, maybe it's something he was told to say in response to Finn Balor's injury. It makes me wonder. Was he told to say something like that, or was it something he was just getting off his chest and thinking, well, it's a network thing, not everyone's going to watch it, so am I going to get in trouble? So that to me was an amazing thing that he did. It was very, it's one of those times where they pull back the curtain a bit, kind of similar to CM Punk's pipe bomb, where he says some things that everyone already kind of knows, but no one thinks anyone's going to say. And so yeah, it was really cool. I'm very curious to see if they follow up on that. But back to the matter at hand, we got to rate SmackDown and Raw. Which show won this week? Who wore it better? Ultimately, I think Raw won this week because they made the best out of a bad situation. They recovered very nicely from Finn Balor having a relinquish the title, and we got a bunch of really good matches with all the people involved, except maybe for Roman Reigns. That was kind of not that great a match. But everything else I thought was great. And the storyline developments they had, with the New Day and Anderson and Gallows, the Dudley Boys getting beat up, all that stuff, to me, I think made a more captivating show. It was, it was 3 hours long, and that's always going to be a handicap against them, but I think they made the most of it. Again, they made the best out of a terrible situation. Who knows how different Raw would have been on Monday had Finn Balor not been injured and things went, plan A, But ultimately, I think SmackDown was a very good show, but I think that Raw, to me, this week, was a more entertaining show. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.